This is a non-sequitur.
Hello, welcome to Non-Sequidetours. In this series, I discuss stuff I really wanted to talk about in the Omni-Bestiary, but couldn't really fit it in. This is a companion episode to the Omni-Bestiary entry on the Indominus Rex, so check it out if you haven't already. So throughout my studies on InGen's techniques for reviving dinosaurs, I came across these rows upon rows of random letters. These random letters are a DNA sequence, where each letter represents the four main components of a strand of DNA: the nucleotides adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. These are important because they ultimately determine what amino acids, represented by single letters in separate amino acid sequences, are added to a polypeptide chain during translation. For every 3 nucleotides that code a certain acid, 4 signals when to start or stop. These polypeptide chains would form the proteins vital for the function and development of organisms such as yourself or one of Jurassic World's dinosaurs. So that's the importance of these letters. But what does the sequence mean? What creature does this actually correlate with? Well, a molecular biologist named Boguski asked the same question, and he inputted it into the National Center for Biotechnology Information's BLAST program, which aligns DNA and amino acid sequences with the closest matches in their database. In doing so, he found that this DNA of an ancient beast is most like that of E. coli? This was a contaminated sample. Here's a more coherent, untainted DNA sequence for the Gallimimus here. If we put into BLAST X, which has the additional function of translating nucleotides to acids, we can see that it most closely resembles the sequence of Gallus gallus, aka the red jungle fowl, which is basically a wild chicken. This sequence makes much more sense given the dinosaurs' close evolutionary heredity with modern birds. It also looks like there's a little surprise in there. There have been other sequences popping up here and there in Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, which I shall attempt to decipher. The first is this one, reflecting off of a velociraptor. This one was already done by Vallismortis on Science Fiction and Fantasy Stack Exchange, whose attempts to decode it ended up with them obtaining a match with the DNA of a mouse. Of course, they couldn't get a clear look at the full sequence, and this actually appears to be light weirdly reflecting into the shape of letters, instead of it being a logical DNA sample actually involved in dinosaur splicing. The second is from Jurassic Park's Mr. DNA presentation. At first, one might think that this would be nigh impossible to solve due to all the letters zooming by so quickly. However, if you pause it and look very closely, you notice that each of the rows in the sequence are repeating themselves. This means that if I'm making the correct assumption here, I would only have to focus on certain parts of the sequence. So I went ahead and recorded the non-repeating parts, to the best of my ability. Then I adjusted the order of the sequence to account for the fact that these rows are traveling in different directions, and I submitted all possible versions of the sequence into BLAST. Unfortunately, all the matches I got did not correlate with species remotely related to dinosaurs, as all I got are bacteriums and roundworms. And of course, we probably should have suspected that animated edutainment presentation wasn't going to give us a legitimate sequence. The third and final sequences we'll talk about are these ones relating to the Indominus Rex, which I caught a glimpse of on Mr. Wu's computer. First, we have the amino acid sequences near the left of the screen. These appear to be several similar sequences being repeated, so I'm assuming that Wu was trying to align samples to find differences here. I also assume that these were related to the cuttlefish and tree frog shown by them, but I got nothing like that when I tried to record them and plug them into BLAST. However, these are probably incomplete segments, So there was no way we were going to get anything that made sense to outside eyes. Besides, I'm more interested in the sequences at the bottom of the screen. This appears to be another alignment test, but these samples are labeled. If you look here, you can see the name PAX6, PAX5, and PRRD. These are actually the names of several genes that code proteins involved in early development. If we copy over the sequence for the PAX6 protein into BLAST, or at least the stuff that isn't obscured by random computerized nonsense, and submit it, it confirms that what we have is indeed a PAX6 protein. Granted, what I have is one for East Asian blue crab, but it's nevertheless a PAX6 protein. Well done, Mr. Wu. And so, if any of you aspiring geneticists out there spot a random sequence floating around somewhere, you have a fun little game to play here.
This has been a non-sequitur.